Just getting everything up and running for this presentation, shadow work with Baneful Herbs. If anyone has any questions on anything that I may have missed during this presentation, feel free to shoot me an email at thepoisonersapothecary@gmail.com. All right, let's get started. So, shadow work is a concept that comes from Jungian psychology. It was started and popularized by Carl Jung as a way to identify and integrate unconscious parts of the self that the ego does not want to identify with. So, it's something that can be used in therapy and modern psychology and kind of outside of the context of magical practice and spirituality, but the two go pretty well together. So it is a form of self-help and something that anyone can do, meditating on and engaging with these shadow aspects. The first step being to kind of to define them. So any type of fears that you may have or things that you have been taught are not acceptable, things that should be suppressed and repressed, different personality traits that maybe your parents or peers growing up or society at large has kind of taught us that these things are negative and should be avoided and not fully expressed. So, shadow work is a desire and practice of understanding the shadow aspects of not only the self, but also the collective. So, the collective unconscious, just as much as the personal unconscious, has these shadow aspects. So, when we do shadow work on an individual basis, we're also kind of healing the collective. With shadow work as magical practitioners, we can take that a step further and actually consider these shadow aspects of ourself to be thought forms. Essentially, even though they are being repressed, it takes a lot of energy to repress those things. So, um, over time, they start to negatively impact our life and the world around us and sort of our self-image and self-esteem. They can come out as uh, harmful behaviors, addictions, negative thought patterns, all of these different things that can have a negative impact on our day-to-day lives. So when we engage with them as individual thought forms outside of ourselves, through meditation and ritual, visualization, and even through altered states of consciousness, we're able to engage in more of a conversation with these shadow aspects as not only a part of ourselves, but to be able to separate them from ourselves, to have that conversation, to really see where these things kind of stem from. And when we can get to sort of the root understanding of those shadow aspects, we're able to either heal them and integrate them, as Jungian psychology would say, or to transmute them into a source of empowerment. These shadow aspects are not always things that we um, consider weaknesses or negative attributes. They can also be things that, for whatever reason, we are drawn to and kind of overly identify with some of these shadow aspects, and then kind of turn them outward in a way that is detrimental to our well-being and our interaction with the rest of the world. So this is more or less a defense mechanism that people sort of begin to overly identify with the sort of alter ego side of these shadow aspects. For example, feeling like you are not worthy or not worthy of love, whether that's through how you were raised as a child or different traumatic events that may have happened to you, kind of turning that outward almost in a way that you are, very hungry for attention. This could lead to different attention seeking behaviors, risky behaviors, looking for love and attention in all of the wrong places. And then we sort of start to wear that shadow aspect or its alter ego as kind of a mantle of protection. Say, it comes from this place of not being good enough or fear of not being good enough. And we sort of turn that turn that around and create this shadow aspect that sort of becomes the alter ego of that. And now all of a sudden we are sort of throwing ourselves out there in a way that's not necessarily healthy or constructive and can lead to further issues down the road. So, shadow work is the understanding and exploration of our inner darkness for healing, empowerment, and to release that which does not serve. Shadow work is inner work done in the darkness, done alone. The shadow is not just the negative, repressed, ignored, and shameful parts of ourselves. It is the part of us that tells us we must be perfect to attain success at all costs, that we are not good enough. The shadow is good at disguising itself as desirable qualities. Shadow aspects can arise in response to trauma and abuse. They can occur when we have not healed or processed painful emotions or when we ignore our inner voice. The self becomes fragmented, and these fragments act against each other. Shadow work teaches us to not only embrace, but to train these parts of ourselves to work in our favor. This is the reason why these plants are so helpful for shadow work. Difficult transitions and overcoming some of the most difficult experiences that we as humans may encounter. They're connected in sympathetic and intimate ways to many of the emotions, energies, and obstacles that we are faced with when doing this difficult work. By working with baneful herbs, we can heal our relationship with ourselves and in turn our connection to the natural world. In this presentation, we will look at some baneful herbs and the virtues that they have which make them helpful for this work. So, what is a baneful herb? Baneful basically means harmful and is derived from Old English, something capable of causing harm. There are lots of ways that plants can cause us harm, and that is not limited to the many sinister physical wounds that they can inflict. Baneful is the ominous quality that is attributed to a plant that is capable of more than healing. When they are a threat or nuisance to agricultural crops, a danger to animals, uncontrollable, invasive, or unwanted, they take on an adversarial nature in their folklore. But they are no villains. Their baneful qualities are reflections of our baneful qualities, our fear, our desire to control and manipulate, our desire to destroy. It could be said that all plants have a dualistic nature, having both dark and light aspects, just like people. Some examples of common medicinal herbs with a dark side are blackberry bramble, elder, and dandelion. So we'll see that not all baneful herbs are baneful in the same way. It is in their hidden or dark side that some of their most interesting characteristics can be found. and those that offer the most profound results. Not all baneful herbs are poisonous, but all poisonous plants of power have this baneful quality. First one we'll come to is rose. In addition to the healing side, I've also included at the bottom of each slide some shadow aspects of each of these plants. Rose is a common symbol of love and beauty. It belies a darker secret protected by thorns that will rip and tear the flesh. Rose helps us to uncover what is hidden within ourselves or to retreat and protect ourselves behind a wall of thorns. Rose is powerful heart medicine. It heals, opens, and gently stimulates the heart center, helping with self-love and receiving the love of others. Rose helps the heart to feel safe, secure, and nurtured, something necessary for the integration of healing. Rose offers strong support and protection when we are too weak to stand up for ourselves, but it also shows us a gentle and nourishing side when needed. It is relaxing, mildly sedative, anti-inflammatory, and a tonic for the heart. Some different ways that you can work with rose are as a rose tea, a bath water infused with fresh or dry rose petals or rose hydrosol, placing bouquets of roses in the home, putting powdered rose petals in drinks, foods, smoothies, etc., or visiting a rose garden. Rose hips, the fruit of the rose bush, are rich in nutrients and disease-fighting antioxidants. It is supportive and restorative, bringing strength, beauty, and protection. Other members of the rose family, such as hawthorn, blackthorn, and apple, are also powerful plant allies to work with in this way. The shadow side of rose shows false beauty, superficiality, frigidity, unwillingness, and lies. Next is foxglove. Foxglove, an herb from the poison garden, foxglove has powerful effects on the heart, making it a life-saving medicine and deadly poison. It seems to be one of the more whimsical of the poisonous plants, being associated with fairies and the other world. But as we all know, fairies are not the innocent sprites that we see in Victorian-era photos. Foxglove is a potent heart medicine, both chemically and energetically. It helps not only open and heal the heart, but to balance the flow of its energy. Foxglove is great for empaths. It's extremely supportive during shadow work and other difficult healing transitions. It helps to heal burnout and keep it from happening again by teaching the heart how to control what it transmutes and receives. When the heart is open, we attract abundance and flow in harmony with the world around us. It is one of my favorite plant allies to help with all matters of the heart, heartbreak, emotional trauma, self-love, and more. Working with foxglove can be worked with as a flower essence or plant essence, and this is a powerful way to connect with the plant spirit. We'll learn more about flower essences later in the presentation. Flower essences can be safely ingested and applied to the skin, so they're a great way to work with some of these plants that are more toxic. Apply foxglove flower essence to the chest to work with the heart center. Fresh flowers can also be placed in this area over the heart. Foxglove is grown as an ornamental for its stunning spikes of bell-shaped flowers. Easily found in garden centers, growing foxglove is an effective way to connect with its spirit and work with its healing energies. Foxglove or digitalis contains deadly digitoxins and should not be ingested. Care should be taken when handling fresh plant material. Some of the shadow side of foxglove has to do with heartbreak, looking outside to fix within, the fear of loss, emotional trauma, and vengeance. Next, we come to belladonna, or deadly nightshade. Like its name suggests, deadly nightshade has been used in murder, assassination, and suicide for centuries. It has also been used as an aphrodisiac, beautifier, and medicine for just as long. This plant embodies the dualistic nature of the witch, both healer and heretic. An herb of the shadow realms, deadly nightshade gives us the ability to see in the shadows, the gift of discernment by opening our eyes. A powerful poison plant ally that offers deep introspection and has the ability to take the shape of our fears so that we can face them. Belladonna reflects back our own shadows. Its black berries mirrors into our soul. A femme fatale, fearsome warrior, and dread goddess, the spirit of deadly nightshade is a spirit of feminine liberation and seeks to break the conceptions that the patriarchy has instilled in us. Gender, sexuality, sovereignty, pain, trauma, power roles, and personal agency are all themes associated with this plant. As a plant ally, it can help us find courage and stand fully in who we are, fangs and all. Working with deadly nightshade, it's important to remember that this potentially poisonous plant is toxic if ingested. Belladonna can be worked with safely using topical formulas such as infused oils and salves. Growing the plant is an act of witchcraft in itself and can be powerfully transformative. Like the other plants in the nightshade family, there is a lot of potential for use in ritual and healing. Working with these plants slowly and gradually is the best way to understand their full power. Solanaceae is the Latin name for the nightshade family, to which deadly nightshade belongs, and means to soothe. And they have been used historically to relieve pain and bring sleep in many instances. In addition to their baneful qualities, they are capable of easing many of life's transitions. Some of the shadow qualities for deadly nightshade are paranoia, darkness, control, domination, adversarial, and manipulative. Next, we come to henbane. Henbane, an ancient herb of necromancy. Its powers regarding prophecy and spirit communication were well known by the ancient Greeks, Germanic people, and it had a reputation throughout the ancient world as an herb of magic. Most commonly known for its association to necromancy, death, and the dead, henbane is also a celebratory herb, a plant of shamanic inebriation, put in sacred brews for its psychoactive effects. Henbane brings light to the darkness. Henbane can help with all sorts of divination, especially scrying and spirit communication, which can be a useful aid when seeking answers during shadow work. Henbane can help with all matters related to death and dying, including shamanic death, coming to terms with mortality, transition of the dying, the grieving process, etc. It can relieve fear and anxiety. It can relieve fear and anxiety related to death and dying, but helps with nervousness in general, and is available in homeopathic formulas for this. It is one of the safer nightshades to work with, both internally and externally, and can offer pain relief and sedation when needed. For example, helping one sleep or relax when the nervous system is overloaded from emotional processing. As an ally for shadow work, henbane is friendly and comforting, but unafraid to run headfirst into battle. It can help make shadow work less scary by reducing anxiety and fear when we confront ourselves, but will also bring up those that we have tried to bury. Henbane has been used in various different ways over the centuries, both for its medicinal and magical effects. It has been historically used as an incense blend in ritual and ceremony, and the smoke has also been inhaled for pain relief. Henbane massage oils are still used for their pain-relieving and aphrodisiac effects, and henbane tincture and its derived compounds are used internally for various GI issues. It is important that these preparations be formulated and worked with properly. However, precedent shows us that even non-herbalists can work with this plant with little danger. However, that does not mean that it doesn't have uncomfortable side effects. Henbane can be a good option when situations call for more potent spiritual medicines applied to the skin. Inhaling the smoke or taking small doses over time can create needed chemical and energetic changes in instances where profound and immediate spiritual healing and assistance is needed. Some of these shadow qualities of henbane are delusion, hanging on at all costs, or fear of letting go, fear of mortality, entropy, decay, mania, obsessive thoughts, and disassociation. Next, we come to datura. Datura is perhaps one of the most important and widely used poison plant medicines. We see its medicinal, magical, and ceremonial uses um, across all different parts of the world. Datura is a powerful poison, spiritual, and physical medicine. It is one of the most important ceremonial power plants in North America and has traditions of use among indigenous peoples in the North and South. Datura is revered as a master plant spirit and great teacher, one that must be approached with respect. Some fates may seem worse than death, and 3 days of paranoid madness may come close. Datura is a medicinal and low-dose herb that is used in ceremony for rites of passage. It is a plant of transition, transformation, and a powerful catalyst for change. A shapeshifter with many different masks, Datura can be a reassuring grandmother spirit or a literal monster. Working with this plant spirit can be very intense. In shadow work, it helps with fear-based anxiety, aggressive behaviors, also fear-based, paranoia, and nightmares, which can all result as symptoms of the intense work that is being done. When we choose to do shadow work, we are plunged into the darkest parts of ourselves and sometimes lash out in resistance. Datura helps with this, teaching us how to transmute toxic patterns, environmental influences, and toxic attachments. Once used as an effective treatment for asthma, Datura opens us up. Just as it opens our airways, our paths of communication, it opens us up to receive information, energy, or insight in other ways. It can also be used in this way to break through blockages of stagnant energy and to transmute toxic influences in our lives. Working with Datura, as one of the poisonous members of the nightshade family, care is needed when working with Datura. Datura should not be taken internally unless under the direction of a qualified practitioner. The internal consumption of datura is something that is regarded with fear and trepidation and great respect, even among the indigenous communities that use the plant ceremonially. It is something that is done as a rite of passage, once or maybe twice in a lifetime. It is not a plant medicine that is returned to over and over again, like some of the others. It can be applied topically for grounding, relaxation, sedation, and to draw out unwanted energies. This is usually applied to the feet for drawing out or to a specific area where there are blockages. Datura flowers are traditionally used by the Chumash people of North America in a foot soak that helps with exhaustion, stress, and soothes energy. Datura has many spiritual applications, from cleansing and banishing to soul retrieval and working through ancestral trauma. It teaches us to tap into our unconscious through dreams and waking visions. It is a formidable ally. It brings fear to our demons, chases away harmful spirits and maleficia. However, because of its extreme potency, it is best to work with this plant gently. Some of the shadow qualities of datura are anger, toxic behavior, addiction, obsession, recklessness, attachment, and taking on other people's bullshit. Next, we come to elder, one of the baneful herbs that is not poisonous necessarily, but also has a lot of baneful qualities and associations. Elder is another baneful herb that in folklore has a dark and sinister reputation. It was believed to be bad luck, an ill omen, and a home for spirits and witches. In European folklore and the British Isles, there are many taboos and superstitions surrounding elder, avoiding its maleficia and petitioning its spirits. Wherever there is folklore about elder, there is usually a connection to the spirit world, the dead, witches, or the fairy realm. Some believe elder to be a gateway to the other world. Seeking the aid of elder during shadow work is like seeking out the advice of a wise old sage. They will make you figure it out for yourself, but ensure you stay on the right track. Elder can confer immunity, strength, and protection, both spiritually and physically. It can be used supportively during times of major stress and upheaval to remain balanced and grounded. Working with elder, there are many easy to find formulas containing elder for general health and wellness. Work with elderflower to connect with spirits of the upper world for purification and remove low vibration energy. Work with elder to connect with the spirits of the underworld for insight and grounding. Combine to balance celestial and terrestrial energies and dark versus light, talking about the flowers and the berries. Find an elder tree growing in the wild and make regular offerings. It's traditional to tie pieces of cloth to its branches to transfer all forms of disease and harmful influence. The seeds, stems, leaves, and roots of the plant contain cyanide-inducing glycosides, which can be poisonous in large amounts, causing a buildup of cyanide in the body over time. Typically, these compounds are destroyed when the herb is cooked or dried. The berries and flowers contain much smaller amounts and are used in medicinal preparations such as elderberry syrup and elderflower liqueur. Some of the shadow qualities associated with elder are corruption, contagion, othering, feeling unsupported, and lacking foundation. Next, we come to bramble. Blackberry bramble, growing in thick, intricately woven thickets. Brambles of all kinds grow at the edges of forests and fields, paths, and roadways. They are hedge plants and occupy the liminal space of the boundary between cultivated and wild. They represent the threshold into the wilderness where all manner of spirits and beasts roam free. In many places, bramble is associated with the folkloric devil, believed to be a plant under his nefarious influence. However, it was also used in many instances of healing and transference magic. The bramble arch is a gateway into the other world. It can help us achieve breakthrough and cross thresholds on our own journey, offering defense and support. Bramble is obviously going to be a good ally for boundaries, which we normally think of as keeping unwanted things out, but it also asks us what we are giving away that we should be keeping for ourselves. Unhealthy boundaries don't always seem negative, and having this extra layer of protection can keep out unwanted influences when we are feeling vulnerable. Working with brambles, whether blackberry or raspberry, are common throughout the world. They're known for their astringent properties. It was believed bad luck to eat the berries starting in October because it was believed the devil had claimed them for himself. Since blackberry and raspberry are both delicious edible berries, there are lots of potential ways to incorporate working with this plant. The leaves can be brewed into astringent teas and also decoctions for the skin. It helps us to strengthen our physical and energetic boundaries and hold on to what is ours. Blackberry canes can be cut and tied into bundles to dry, which can then be burned to erect powerful protective and banishing boundaries. Red raspberry leaf is also a historically venerated uterine tonic that is still used today to help and protect during pregnancy. Some of the shadow qualities of bramble are lacking boundaries, disarray, entanglement, stagnancy, and the inability to transition. Next, we come to flower essences. Flower essences are a completely safe way to connect with the energy and spirit of poisonous plants through ingestion and topical application. They're also one of the most helpful and supportive for incorporating into shadow work, psychedelic integration, and all forms of profound inner healing. Flower essences are powerful energetic tools that can be worked with for transformation, healing, and support. They create profound changes to our energy, emotions, and thought patterns. As energetic remedies, their action is more profound on the subtle body than the physical body, making them safe to take regardless of the plant being used. There are many plants that are too potent to be taken orally on a regular basis, and some not at all. Flower essences capture the unique energetic signature of the plant spirit. They're prepared by connecting with the living plant ally, bringing offerings, saying prayers, and asking that the energy of the plant be transferred to the water. There are different ways to create flower essences. This information is readily available, and there are lots of great books on the topic. So I won't go into too much detail on how to make them, but I do recommend Flower Essences from the Witch's Garden by author Nicholas Pearson, which is a magical practitioner. I consider this one of the most useful books on the topic. The indirect method is one method, which means that the vessel of water is set next to the plant. The direct method is when fresh flowers are floated directly onto the surface of the water, which you see in the photo here. And the pour over method, which keeps the plant intact while water is poured over it and caught into a vessel. The vessel is left to infuse for a full cycle of either sun or moon, being a day or a night, and further petitions are made to focus the intention. So what you're seeing here in the picture is essentially a flower essence altar that I set up. So not only do I have the flowers that I'm making essences from, but I also got some fresh flowers from the store and created a kind of altar space in offering to the plant spirits. In the middle of that is a glass full of honey. So essentially just set up an offertory type altar for the plants that I'm working with. So you can see orchid, Venus flytrap, and cannabis flowers that I use to make some of my own flower essences. The water used when making flower essences should be spring water. And ideally, or traditionally, I guess, it's suggested to use a bowl that is made out of crystal, just because of its energetics and its ability to hold and amplify the vibrational energy that we're working with. But personally, I think that glass works just fine. You could also use a copper vessel for its association to Venus, who is ruler of plants and herbs and green magic in general. So in this way, only trace amounts of constituents are actually in the water. The water is then mixed 50-50 with brandy as a preservative. This is referred to as the mother essence. And a few drops of the mother essence goes into what becomes known as the stock bottle. After those few drops of the mother essence are added to the stock bottle, an additional mixture of 50% spring water and 50% brandy are added to that. And then a few drops of the stock bottle are put into smaller dosing bottles. It is the dosing bottle that is what is actually taken. And that is further diluted by 50% spring water and 50% brandy. The idea behind this being that the dilution of any trace amounts of plant material that may be in the water, while its physical presence is being diluted, its energetic effects are being amplified. So essentially, a mother essence is going to last you a lifetime. Every so often, I like to recharge my mother essences that I use to create dosing bottles. So some of the mother essences that I've created have been around for a number of years. So instead of just leaving them sitting on the shelves. I'm recharging them by essentially creating this same or similar setup to what you see here. Basically, an offertory space with fresh flowers, candles, offerings like incense, honey. And you can kind of see on the top right of this picture, I also incorporate bells to kind of intensify the vibration through sound. So you could also use like crystal singing bowls if you're wanting to bring in a specific frequency or vibration, kind of working with all of those elements then to recharge them as time goes on. So flower essences are taken orally on a daily basis for a predetermined amount of time. They can be taken long term, but I believe that they work best when taken cyclically. So working with moon phases or specific numbers of days for their numerological meaning. Depending on your reason for working with flower essences, the time frame and frequency will change. For my essences, I usually suggest taking 5 to 7 drops in water or directly in your mouth 3 times per day when working on them, when working with them. By incorporating specific numerological values, planetary days, and other correspondences, you can add additional ritual elements to this process. So with the potent energetics of poisonous plants, they make some of the best candidates for flower essences. These are a great way to start connecting with the spirit of a plant. Taking a flower essence while studying a plant's history, lore, and medicine will often lead to surprising insights. Flower essences are not going to alter your consciousness, make you hallucinate, or poison you. They bring changes to our energy and thought patterns, which manifest in our physical lives. So flower essences are, I guess, chemically speaking, considered one of the more subtle ways to work with these plants. When we talk about poisonous and entheogenic herbs and fungi, a lot of the emphasis is put on the consciousness altering effects. But when it comes to flower essences, that of course is much more subtle. And a lot of people will kind of discount them and go for more intense ways of working with plants as entheogens. However, what I have found is that flower essences come through as being very supportive and extremely powerful during those times when we have kind of exhausted every other option and have, essentially nothing left to work with. A lot of times these flower essence formulas will come forward and create really profound healing perspective, profound healing. I lost the word. Profound healing experiences, introspection, insight that, would be unexpected, I guess, for somebody that is, comparing it to what we would draw from a very psychedelic experience, so to speak. So it's really interesting how the flower essences really seem to step forward when some of those other options have either been exhausted or are just not necessarily an option for whatever reason. Going to look at some of the baneful herbs and their benefits for uses as flower essences. Of course, they're not going to be limited to these things, and a lot of times through working with them individually, the plant spirit will show you different uses that are based on your own personal gnosis. So belladonna or deadly nightshade, for example, is great for healing all kinds of issues relating to sexual trauma. Also embracing the dark side of sexuality, which is different for everyone. Exploring taboos, finding personal power. It is supportive during shamanic death or ego death, which is the dissolution of aspects of the self. It's also a powerful ally for working with the energies of death and destroying patriarchal mental constructs. It is a powerful tool for connecting with the spirit world. Datura stramonium, or thorn apple. So there are a few different varieties of datura. We can look at them kind of as having general collective sort of qualities. So the entire species of datura can be worked with similarly. So datura stramonium, datura inoxia, datura metel, they're all going to have a lot of qualities in common. However, they also have some more individual uses. And again, that will sometimes come through as individual personal gnosis based on working with these flower essences and working with the plant spirit. So for Datura stramonium, I have shadow work, spiritual detoxification, strengthening boundaries, dealing with anger and aggression, understanding and stopping nightmares, understanding fears and phobias, mental programming, mental reprogramming, and exploring gender identity. Datura inoxia, releasing tension, anger, and resentment, soothing overworked and overstressed nerves, overcoming fear and anxiety, understanding and stopping nightmares, healing trauma, releasing attachments, past life issues, and exploring gender identity. Datura as a trickster and shapeshifter spirit is going to be a powerful ally for shapeshifting into these different aspects of ourselves so that we can explore them and understand them more deeply. Datura metel, or Indian thorn apple, connecting to the collective unconscious and spirit world, divine insight, exploring taboos, spiritual and energetic detoxification, and understanding the sacredness of death and decay, allowing aspects of ourselves to essentially die, become reconstituted into the whole so that we can start a new chapter. So understanding and exploring the importance of that cycle of life and death, not only in the world around us, in nature, and with losing of loved ones, but also in our own sort of symbolic death, as well as transforming poison into medicine. Datura is a very powerful ally for this process of transmutation, of recognizing and neutralizing different toxic influences in our lives. It can also be used to connect with Shiva, the deity of ecstasy and intoxication, who is also the god of yoga, meditation, and the arts. And again, exploring gender identity. We oftentimes talk about plant spirits in terms of how they manifest and what they look like to us, which is usually different for each person. And we use terms as far as masculine and feminine. However, Datura as a true shapeshifter is one that is very difficult to pin down and often exhibits both and everything in between. With henbane, we find it to be a powerful ally, of course, relating to all things death, assisting and facilitating ego death, healing grief and mourning, processing and coming to terms with death, whether that be our own or others, and also helping to transition the dying into the next stage. Henbane as a flower essence is something that is not going to be a form of euthanasia or poison the person. So it's something that is safe to use, but is going to help allay any fears or cut any attachments that that person may have, allowing them for a more peaceful and smooth transition into the afterlife. Henbane can be taken during transitional periods or crossroads before the way is immediately known to us. It acts as a guide and an intermediary. Next, we come to hellebore. Hellebore is a powerful plant ally for guidance during a dark night of the soul, during initiating and cathartic experiences. It also helps to keep us grounded during times of upheaval, anchors us to the present while unearthing the past. It can be supportive in ancestral healing, severing attachments, and ending harmful relationships. Hellebore can also be taken as a flower essence to help ease a racing mind and obsessive thoughts. Next, we come to monkshood. I'd like to show the connection between monkshood and the hermit, which we can see kind of resembled in the hood of the flower. So this is a very strong supportive plant ally for shadow work in general, because it has to do with working through things on our own sort of self-reflection. It can be a powerful ally for finding wisdom through introspection, inner strength through solitary work. As a flower essence, it can be helpful for easing nervousness, as well as helping overcome feelings of loneliness when going through some of these difficult transitions. It helps us to draw power from being alone and transition through dark periods. When we work with poisonous, baneful, and invasive plants, we are doing collective shadow work. So not only in the sense that as we heal ourselves, we heal the wider community, but also through working through some of our fears and anxieties and misinformed ideas about some of these plants. So coming to understand them on an individual basis and appreciate them for their healing power, their medicinal property, and other value that so many of these plants that are demonized, whether they are considered poisonous, invasive, or detrimental in some way. We are partnering with the plants to do shadow work with them as well and to shine light on some of these areas that we don't understand that bring up different fears in relationship to working with the natural world. So here I have some books that I suggest that kind of relate to this practice. Of course, I mentioned Flower Essences from the Witch's Garden. So this is an extremely comprehensive text on working with individual flower essences. So we're getting the energetics, the magical correspondences, and the healing capabilities of over 100 different individual plants, written by Nicholas Pearson. And we're also getting that from a perspective of magical practice and witchcraft. So incorporating them into ways that are beyond, homeopathic medicine or clinical herbalism, or something grounded more in the practical side of it, the medicinal side of it, but also incorporating them into our spiritual practice. Also have the Plant Spirit Familiar. This is by Christopher Penczak. This is one of my favorite books, one of my earliest books that I came across that introduced me to the idea of working with baneful herbs. So we come to understand them as teachers and healers, not only baneful herbs, but also more benign counterparts, as well as trees. So this is a really great resource that I highly recommend you check out if you're interested in green witchcraft or plant spirit medicine. And then we have a new title, The Tameless Path, Unleashing the Power of Invasive Plants in Witchcraft. And this is by Camden Cornell. This is also a really, really awesome and comprehensive resource, kind of poison path adjacent, since the focus is on invasive plants, but a lot of that has to do with sort of our collective shadow work and looking at some of the magical, medicinal, and just general value that a lot of these demonized plants have to offer us if we're willing to take a look. So I highly recommend that as well. And then my next book, The Poison Path Grimoire, which comes out November 5th, 2024. Dark Herbalism, Poison Magic, and Baneful Allies. One of the main sections in this book are on shadow work and incorporating poisonous plants and other baneful herbs into that practice, as well as providing different meditations, exercises, and things like that that are supportive to the work itself. So that was my presentation. Thank you so much. And if you have any questions and are watching the recording, like I said, feel free to send me an email at thepoisonersapothecary@gmail.com.